Hello guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is Sujit here from Benzene, and today in this video I'm going to talk about how to effectively use Jira for your sprint planning meeting. So let's start. So everyone, sprint planning meeting is the first ceremony which we do when we start the sprint. It usually happens on the day one of the sprint. The first half we take for sprint planning meeting. For a 2-week sprint, sprint planning meeting is time boxed for 4 hours maximum. So this is the ceremony where we plan for next 10 days. So before we start a sprint planning meeting, there are a few things which a scrum master along with product owner needs to take care of. The first thing is when you go to your backlog, you will have to create a sprint bucket for the future sprint. For example, if you see my screen, I have already created a future sprint, which is SSP Sprint 1. The next point is the product owner should take care of all the stories which is prioritized for the next sprint. The Scrum Master can create a sprint bucket for future sprints. And before coming to the planning meeting, the product owner can prioritize all the user stories which are planned for the sprint by dragging and dropping into the sprint bucket as shown here. So what is the first step in the sprint planning meeting? The first step in the sprint planning meeting is to talk about or to set the goal of the sprint. The product owner usually comes and explains to the team as to what is that we want to achieve in this sprint as a whole team. The next step in the sprint planning meeting is to understand the user stories itself. Now, we all understand the stories would have been groomed in the previous sprint in the refinement meeting. So the first step in sprint planning meeting is to set the goal. The product owner usually sets the goal for the team in terms of what is that the team is supposed to achieve in this sprint. So the first step in sprint planning meeting is to take the first story and ensure that everyone understands the user story. The product owner explains the user story, and we have all the acceptance criteria which is discussed among everyone in the team. Once the acceptance criteria and the user stories are explained to the team, it is now time for the team to understand or to discuss the solution or approach in delivering that user story. This is when we create subtasks for the user story. In Jira, you can open up a user story and then create subtasks. Let me show you also how. So once you open a user story, there's an option you get to create a subtask, and then you can start creating all the subtasks based on the solution or based on the approach we will be taking. Let me show you how. Let me create a sample subtask for you in the story. Subtask 1. So this is how we create subtasks within the story, and all the tasks which you have created within a story is visible in the story itself. Now, even before we take the user story, please ensure that all your acceptance criteria and all the attachments which you want to attach in the story is available for the team. Also, please ensure that in your refinement for this story, if you have identified any blockers or dependencies, it is done, it is closed, or it is resolved. You can see here, this story was blocked by this dependency, and the Scrum Master need to ensure before coming to the planning that it is closed. Once you're done with the user story 1, it is time for us to jump to the next story. The cycle repeats. Talk about the user story. The product owner explains the acceptance criteria and the functionality to the team. The team identifies the approach and solution and starts creating subtasks. So once all your stories are done discussing the approach and solution and also creating subtasks, it is now time for us to start the sprint. And how do we start the sprint is what I will show you right now. Once all your subtasking for all your user stories are done, also ensure that you planned your capacity well, and all the story points are given to the stories. And once your capacity is full, it is time for us to start the sprint. And you can start the sprint by clicking on Start Sprint button, and your custom duration and what is the sprint goal. All the goals which the product owner has prioritized for the team can be entered here, and then we can start the sprint by clicking on Start. Once you start the sprint, you will be directed to the active sprint board, where you can see all the stories which you have committed for in the sprint along with their subtasks. You can expand the swim lane of a user story to see what all subtasks we have created as part of that story. So all in all, everyone, this is how we effectively use Jira to plan our sprint and to start the sprint. There are a few prerequisites before we come to the planning meeting. All your sprint buckets should be available with appropriate user stories prioritized by the product owner. Once we start the sprint planning, take one user story at a time, explain the user stories to the team, explain the acceptance criteria, the functionality. And once the user story is explained to the team now solutions or finalizes the approach to the user story, break them into subtasks, and before coming to the sprint planning meeting, ensure all your dependencies or blockers are resolved. Take the next story, again, explain the user story, break them into subtasks, and finally, when your capacity is full, you can start the sprint. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it helped you.